Welcome to Uniquely Brilliant, a podcast for creative, quirky, and extraordinary thinkers of all ages and the people who love them. We encourage, inspire, and provide strategies to motivate you to embrace your unique brilliance and realize your potential for success. Hi, I'm Diana Bader, also known as Coach Di. I encourage teens and young adults to become who they are and develop personal success through self-awareness and positivity. You can find me at freshcanvascoaching.com, follow and like the Fresh Canvas Facebook page, or follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Coach Di.
Hello there, I'm Becky Berry. I am a performance coach who helps people level up their lives by smoothing out the relationship between their work lives and their personal lives. You can find my website at beckyberrycoach.com. I'm on Twitter at Becky Berry Coach, and you can find me on my Facebook page, Becky Berry Coach.
Together we are here sharing our thoughts, insights, and experiences from our own uniquely brilliant perspective. All right, it's episode 103. Today we're talking about boundaries. Please fence me in.
Please, please, please.
Yep.
I like that quote. It's in a Robert Frost poem, but I know more people have said it than him. Is good fences make good neighbors.
Yes.
Right? Because boundaries are we pick boundaries because it's the holidays. Got to set some boundaries for yourself. For yourself, for your personal life. Also, for the people around you and what you're willing to put up with and what you're willing to do. So we thought we'd revisit it because we last talked about it in episode 50. So,
yeah, about this time last year.
Yeah, October.
Mm-hmm.
October. So, boundaries are really cool things. I think when we talked about it before, you talked about like the remember you talked about the fence post?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I love that. We should make sure we talk about that again because that was a great analogy, a great picture. As a person who was formerly without any boundaries, the more boundaries I have, the happier I am, because it kind of gives me a framework to move through life, to know where I begin and end and where other people, begin and end.
All right. Well, you have been mulling this a lot. You were talking about that. For me, a lot of boundaries aren't as hard as they used to be, except for energetically. Because
you're empathic, so yeah.
Well, I'm empathic and I'm an introvert. And so that's one of the skills that I'm learning now is how to not give so much of my energy away and not to absorb so much from other people.
Right.
It works both directions.
Right.
So that has become a big challenge for me. And it's really big, like we're talking about, for around the holidays, because I'm around more people.
Right.
And more people that I wouldn't necessarily be around in my day-to-day. Yeah. So, or also meeting new people. So it becomes, me to have to go inward a little bit and become aware of where these drains and leaks and stuff are.
Right. Well, and boundaries, when you explicitly set boundaries, like have a thought about them, like think about them, whether you write them down or not. It makes it a lot easier to realize when they're being broached.
Oh, yeah.
Right? That please fence me in thing. I'm writing a blog post this week called Boundaries Won't Let You Down. Mm-hmm. Because if you know what they are at a conscious level, then they won't let you down. Because you really want them. You know that you're guarding yourself. I mean, that's why you set a boundary. Nobody sets a boundary without thinking, oh, I gotta guard myself. I got to guard my time, my energy, whatever it is. So I think it's a really, it's a great like fallback position, as opposed, for me, I'm charging for it. I'm doing this. I'm working with somebody. I'm working with somebody for free. I'm doing something. And all of a sudden I'm like, I said I wasn't going to do that. Right. So because of the fact that I said I wasn't going to do that, I'm faster to realize I'm breaching my own boundary, and then I actually immediately have a strategy for handling it. Again, because I've thought about it explicitly, that I'm willing to give this much time, and that's it. And then I have to, then I'm going to have to walk away because I have to protect my energy and my time both.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And, excuse me, I have to protect my income. I forget that one. So, I've noticed this lately. I just did a whole marathon session with some people who were having problems with boundaries at work. And these guys, we had to work through it on both sides. So the guys had to, figure out what the boundaries were on both sides. And what happens when you don't have boundaries and when you haven't explicitly set boundaries with somebody you're in a relationship with. This doesn't have to be like a love relationship. It can be a work relationship. It can be any kind of relationship. Mm-hmm. But when you don't have explicitly set boundaries, it's gonna explode or implode. One of those two things. Because somebody's gonna breach some part of this boundary. And where I find it the most with my clients is, and with most people, is around time, free time. I gave you this time. I assumed this was going to happen. There's assume, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Assuming always means there were no boundaries set to begin with, right?
Yes.
That means there are no boundaries. And on the other side, the person is, well, I thought you gave me this time and it meant this, and they are assuming this. But those boundaries around time, those boundaries around money, those boundaries around any investment, because mm-hmm. time and money, those are your treasure, right?
Yep.
Any way you're investing your treasure, it's critical that we spend time thinking about them deeply.
Well, and one thing that has helped me immensely in that is prioritizing. Mm-hmm. And back to my essentialism thing, but what is the most important thing for me? Mm-hmm. And we just talked in the previous episode about love languages, and one of my love languages is time.
Right.
And so time is very valuable to me, and how I spend it and where I spend mm-hmm. it and everything else. It's a currency. I have a relationship with it. I have a relationship with my money. And how I want that to play out comes together with what I prioritize. And actually, one of the first things I do in the morning is think of what is the least I get done today. Mm-hmm. And focus on that. And if that gets done, then I can, move those boundaries a little bit.
Well, and see, that's it. Mm-hmm. The priorities, your to-do list, those are boundaries.
Yep.
Now, that's why a 60-item to-do list is not a boundary.
No, it's scary.
No, it's a quagmire. Mm-hmm. It's a quagmire. You can't get through that. Okay? So you're setting yourself up to break all your boundaries because you can't do it. I like the boundary setting software I use for work is called Dayboard, and it's a tab that comes up whenever I open a new tab in my browser. It comes up and it shows me the 5 priorities I put in there.
Cool.
Right.
Yeah.
So, if I'm going to go check Facebook, first I'm going to have to eyeball my 5 priorities,
Oh, I like that one.
What is that? What is it? Some people do 3. It does 5, so I do 5. But again, that's a boundary I'm setting around myself. Mm-hmm. Now, it's totally up to me to honor that boundary.
Yes.
So I think the boundaries we set around how we treat ourselves are some of the ones that we let go of the fastest, that we ignore.
And those are the ones that we really need to hold on to the tightest, because mm-hmm. people treat you the way that you allow them to treat you.
Right.
And so if you don't have your boundaries set up, they're going to treat you, 69 different ways, however many are on your list.
Right.
Right. Everything's going to be kind of just out there.
Right. There's no stopping point. There's no line in this. A boundary's a line in the sand. It's a fence. It's whatever metaphor you want to use. But the main thing is, it's a speed bump. Mm-hmm. All right. It's not a fence because you can go over it, but it's something that can, if you have explicitly set boundaries, it's a speed bump that makes you go, oh, what am I doing? Mm-hmm. What am I doing here? Right? That gives you, because whenever you hit a speed bump, you pause, right? Particularly if you're not expecting it, you're like, what was that?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So you pause. You make yourself pause. So, that boundary is that speed bump that says, I already spent 2 hours on this, and I said I was going to spend 1 hour on this. So now I've taken away time. I'm working on a new group. So I said I was going to spend an hour on this marketing, but whoa, it fell over into 2. Wait, was that productive too? Or did I just steal an hour from something else that I really needed to do? So that boundary, I crossed my own boundary. Mm-hmm. I'm going to read, here's my biggest one. I'm going to read, this is at night, right? I'm going to read for 10 more minutes because it's almost 11 o'clock. And I look up and it's midnight. And I'm still can't stop. I'm still not, but that boundary protects me. Mm-hmm. If I stop reading at 11 o'clock, by the way, I've already closed my eyes and dropped the book twice, but I read a Kindle, so, I don't lose my place. I can go to sleep. And I can get the sleep I need, and I can wake up in the morning, and I'll be great. That's why it's a boundary. But when I just, bulldoze the boundary, then I'm paying the consequences the next day because I've overstepped my bounds.
Well, plus you're compromising your integrity.
Yeah.
Which, when we start to compromise our own integrity, it becomes a very vicious cycle very fast.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, oh, well, I've already done that. I've already eaten a bite of the chocolate bar. I may as well, eat half of it.
This happened to me this week, right? Because I did that diet. Then I stopped it, but I was doing the maintenance part until somebody, a law practice that I referred somebody to, sent me a dozen Tiff's Treats cookies. The ones that are warm? Mm. Yeah. I threw the last of them away last night. I was like, this is killing me. Because, I just eat half. Oh, there's another, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And when it's a boundary, for me, boundaries around health are really hard. Around eating are really hard. The other health ones I do okay with, I think. But around eating are really hard. So when I breach it can be really hard to get back on.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've already done this. Yeah. I've already done that. Yeah.
Right. And it just, and then I'm feeling guilty all day. Mm-hmm. So by not respecting myself, I've got myself in this whole crazy mess. And by not respecting the boundary that I set so that I wouldn't feel this way, so I could be more, feel better, be more productive, you pick.
And the boundaries start with you, so if you aren't respecting your own boundaries, you can't expect anybody else to.
That's such a great thing. If you don't respect your own boundaries, you can't expect anyone else to. That's so true. And that was actually, that's great. That was the gist of the conversation, mm-hmm. This marathon we had yesterday. So we don't realize that. We don't realize that. The other thing is, I don't think we realize the importance of stating a boundary, of building that fence.
Yeah.
When you build a fence, somebody knows, don't come in here. Mm-hmm. But when it's a boundary in your life, they don't know unless you tell them.
Yeah.
And if they breach that boundary, it's up to you to go, oh, wait, I'm sorry. I should have told you this. I don't do that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
My boundary is I do the podcast on Friday. I don't have lunch with anybody else. I don't see clients. I try not to see clients on Friday. And that's it. That's my boundary. That's my Friday boundary. Mm-hmm. Thank you for giving me one. But it's up to me. Oh, Becky, I didn't know you weren't seeing people on Friday. No, so I'm not, because of my day's just packed. Those are easy ones, I think.
Yes.
Those are easy ones because, those are kind of, it's not just me, it's us, and it's a thing. It's harder to keep those boundaries around, I've got to get this work done. I've got to write this blog post. Yeah. Somebody didn't post a blog post last week. Oh, that would be me, because I just would not sit down and write it.
And that's where routine comes in. That's one of the things about the podcast, is that it helps keep us into at least one day a week as a routine.
I can't even spell it. Seriously. I was thinking about that this morning. I'm like, I'm just, what?
Yeah.
I hate routines.
I do.
Even when they serve me. Mm-hmm. What is that rebel thing?
Oh, I know.
You can't make me do it, and neither can I. Yeah. So, which makes boundaries super duper extra important.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Well, we were talking about kids. We talk about kids all the time. I mean, you've got to set boundaries for kids,
Right.
because so they can grow. There's growth within boundaries, and so they can grow. And they like to test them a little bit, and then you can always, just with our own boundaries, we can move them if we outgrow them.
Right.
And that's one of the things I think people don't realize. They take the boundaries as so permanent,
Like they're concrete.
yeah, and don't realize that what, if life changes, your boundaries can change.
Right. Well, we changed it because we went from Tuesday to Friday.
Well, and
we went, this isn't working for us. We both came to that. We're like, this schedule doesn't work for us. I like doing the podcast, so I love ending my week on this instead of having all that momentum for Monday and stop.
Yeah.
Now we're doing the podcast. Whoa, wait.
Well, I know, and I think initially we were thinking, oh yeah, we'll build a routine in for Monday to Tuesday to whatever. That didn't happen.
No, routine. We're allergic to routine. I don't want no stinking routine.
Well, and
although I flourish with one.
Yeah.
We all flourish with routines because they're boundaries. Just saying. We're just saying. Maybe we should chant that in the mornings. Routine. When we're doing our yoga.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Meditation. Well, I had to do a word, my intention. So mine's really been fearless, which actually has to do with boundaries and everything else. I'm just like, okay. But boundaries. Gosh. I love that. I love that about modifying your boundaries, tweaking your boundaries to your current situation. This negotiation we were working on, it's a startup company. In a startup, people do lots of work that they don't get reimbursed for. When there's not the conversation about what that work looks like and what the parameters are around that, what the boundaries are around that, a confrontation will happen. All the time. Every time I've been in startups for 30 years. It always happens.
Yeah.
And it's always ugly. And in general, in my experience, both sides have tremendous amount of respect for each other. It's just that this not understanding or not enforcing boundaries gets in the way. So somebody gave too much and wasn't, compensated in a way they recognized as compensation. Or somebody was compensated and the person doesn't think that that was the work they were expecting, or, all those different things. And it's all because that the boundaries around time, around how you're able to work, and your personality is a boundary.
Yeah.
Your personality, a lack of understanding about how certain people work and what that looks like and how it plays out. And I think it doesn't happen for two reasons. I think it doesn't happen many, many times. It's because you think it's going to be okay. Well, we're all going, we're good, until we're not. Plus, you can't really picture what it's going to look like 90 days out, whatever, particularly, when you're bootstrapping or things take longer than you expect and you don't realize, you're not focusing on the right thing. It just makes it volatile.
Well, there's a lot of burnout with that. If you don't set a boundary, then the fire is just going to go and go and go, but it eventually is going to burn itself out. So that passion, that drive that you initially had is going to just it's not going to wean off like it would if you had some steady boundaries. It's just going to end. And then the fun and the motivation and everything dies with it. Right.
And the hurt, and then there are hurt feelings because of the assumptions. Boundaries really save you from assuming, which assuming makes an ass out of you and me. So we don't want to do that.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah. The other thing I was thinking about with boundaries, you just said it, is there a way to rein in your enthusiasm? Okay, to instead of exhausting it, you rein it in, you control it, you put it in a little container, and you give it out appropriately.
Yeah, I have a hard time with that.
Right? But you do. I mean, that's what we're talking about with a startup. You're all excited, let's go. But there are no boundaries around how you're going to get there, and then all of a sudden, everybody's exhausted. Maybe the money's gone. Any of those combinations is because there was nothing to bump up against. I love this. I've always loved this analogy. I use it a lot in coaching. Is that it's important to have something to bump up against when you're going 1,000,000 miles an hour, right?
Yep.
It's important to have something to bump up against when you're just so exhausted you don't know what to do. And those boundaries are your bumpers, right? Those boundaries are just there to go, oh, wait, do I really want to do this? When you say, do I really want to do this, you're saying, don't I have a boundary around this?
Yeah.
So I just think that they're really a really good technique for reining you in. I put hold me back. That's in my notes. They hold me back. If I remember, I have them. They can hold me back. The other thing is boundaries are stated boundaries, explicit boundaries are a very effective way to manage conflict. You can avoid conflict, but it's also a great way to manage conflict.
Oh, yeah.
Because it makes it easier to go, oh, this is where we overstepped. Okay, I overstepped this way, you overstepped this way, and we both know what our boundaries are. So let's mitigate it. Let's make it not so bad because we both realize we overstepped that boundary. Mm-hmm. A boundary at its core is a strategy, right? It's a strategy for dealing with situations, with yourself, with how you interact with other people. So to create a strategy, you've actually thought deeper than you think you have.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
You go, well, I'm going to bed at 11 o'clock at night. You just say it that way, but now you thought about it. You thought about if I go up to bed at 11, I can get up at 7, it's all good. I've got 8 hours. I know how important sleep is, et cetera, et cetera. But you just say, well, I'll go to bed at 11, right? Mm-hmm. So when you go to bed at 11:30, you go, wait a minute, this is not what I want to do, and here's why I don't want to do it. Okay, so you can reinforce that boundary that way with yourself. Now, in a work situation or a relationship situation, you can go, listen, my boundary is that I'm going to work for you this many hours a month, and, I'm going to get paid whatever, the agreed amount is. But if you want me to do more work, you have to decide what I'm putting aside. Actually, I usually say we have to decide what we're putting aside so that the strategy maintains itself. See, that keeps everything under control. That keeps limits. That keeps people in their positions of respect.
Yeah, because
it gives you a tool to do it with. That's what I'm trying to say. That was all a long way to say. That's a tool to allow you to do that.
Yeah, because and having these strategies, you have to assess what you're giving up and what the value of that is.
Right.
Especially
to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to you, that's...
I make them do it both ways.
Yeah.
If it's at work, I make them do it both ways. What do people get paid to do this, and what are you getting paid to do this? And that's your choice. See, because then again, if that's your boundary, that means that was your choice. Mm-hmm. And then we look at what you're really getting paid.
Yep.
Yeah, I think assigning values, a concrete value. I mean, it's easy at work. It's not so easy I haven't been in a relationship so long I can't even think about it. It's just really important to weight it, right? To weight it.
Yes.
Let's say it that way.
Yeah. Well, and I think, but you have been in relationships, you've been in friendships and stuff.
Yeah.
And this time of year is one of those things where people want a lot of you.
Yeah.
They want your time, they want your energy, they want your money, they want you to bake cookies, whatever it is.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on.
Come here for Thanksgiving versus stay at home. Yeah, all that stuff. Mm-hmm.
And so this is where you set the boundaries earlier rather than later.
Right.
And make them known that, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to do it.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, but I'm just going to pass for now.
My dad is usually at home on Thanksgiving, and he gets lots of offers and stuff, and he's like, I really want to be able to hear the games.
I know, right?
And he usually makes himself something fantastic like Cornish game hens and things like that, little turkeys.
Oh, I love it. I love the way he's doing. I love the way he does. Well, he has that firm boundary, but I love that he makes it a celebration still.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's that word, boundaries, choice, right? Boundaries are about the choices we make. And he's making this choice because, your dad, I'm telling you, that's just perfect. That's all I did last week was watch football all day on Saturday. That's why I didn't write a blog post. Oops, did I say that? But when you make the choice, he's not making the choice. It's not a burden.
No.
And then so he celebrates his choice.
Oh yeah.
By cooking this, great food and making it exactly what he wants.
Oh, yes, he does. And it's funny because, he'll get some pushback. Well, because some people think you have to be around people.
Yeah.
And you should be around this and, all that should stuff comes out. And, I've been to places before where I've been that person that's been invited over. And then you're in somebody else's family and then you're in their mix. And then you're kind of like, oh, they haven't worked this stuff out.
Do I really want to witness this?
Oh, okay. And
well, yeah, you get to witness the lack of boundaries, right?
Exactly.
Right?
And the lack of communication, like we talked about in the previous episode. Yeah, there's a lot of that stuff going on. So it's, you have to recognize everything that you're going to get yourself into before you say yes.
And those boundaries, like the title of this episode says, they keep you in. Mm-hmm. They keep you contained because we need a container. We're not amorphous, And when we are, I mean, at least when I am, boy, I'm just done. I'm exhausted. I can't even function. So
yeah, your energy's going in way too many directions. And time and whatever, everything's going in too many directions.
Then you're subject to every whim, yours and other people's, because then I just don't have a boundary. Sure, I'll go there. And a great boundary enforcer is your calendar. Yeah. Did we do it? We did an episode on calendars, didn't we? Oh yeah, we did. It's like 4 or 5 ago. You'll have to look it up. But one of the things I like about the calendar is if I keep it filled out, then it gives me some boundaries and I can actually look at it laid out because I have to have it laid out in front of me. I have my virtual calendars and stuff, but I have to have my paper one.
I do too.
So I can see those dependencies and I go, oh, did I just really schedule 4 clients on one day? I did. What was I thinking? So out of that realization came a Post-it note, otherwise known as a boundary, that said a minimum of 30 minutes per client, no more than 3 clients in a day. That's my boundary. It wasn't a boundary till I wrote it down. Just saying. Mm-hmm. Because otherwise, for me, for that kind of thing, it's just an idea until I capture it. Because if I don't, just go through that step, I forget.
Yep.
I forget. Like, what did I write? I created some boundaries a couple of weeks ago, wrote in a Post-it note and stuck it in my pocketbook. So at random times it comes out of my pocketbook. I'm like, oh yeah. And I'm sticking to it. But I'm sticking to it because I wrote it down. Mm-hmm. So sometimes we need to write down our boundaries. And put them right there. Put them on your computer. Put them, put a Post-it note on your calendar that says, these are my limits. I don't work on the weekends. Yeah. But that means I have to work during the week. So to write that blog post during the week. But that's literally what it was. Okay. Is I don't work. I'm not working. What did I say? I don't remember how I said it, which is why it's not working. I do not, it needs to say I do not work on the weekends. I don't remember what the other one was, but I know that was part of it. And it just came to me. I'm like, I've got to write this down.
Yep. And that's how you're prioritizing.
Right. Yeah. Right. I read an article last week about, because I did boundaries at Next Chapter, that group I run for women who are in transition here in Alpharetta. And this woman talked about your maximum boundaries and your minimum boundaries. I liked that a lot. I liked that a lot. I used it in this situation that I was coaching around. She says, she used like exercise. What are your minimum and your maximum? My minimum is I'm going to walk 3 days a week. My maximum is 5 because I want to reserve time to, to do other things. Yeah. It can be money minimum and maximum of what your, I like that what your boundaries are, right? I do like that because then, that underscores what you said about boundaries are flexible. They're living things. Mm-hmm. I like that. Boundaries are living things. So that reinforces that concept.
Yeah, I like that a lot. For sure. Because, because there's always going to be something that's going to make you need to sort of test those boundaries sometimes.
Right.
Stuff comes up. It just does. It's life. Does.
Yeah, right. And if you've thought about, well, what's the most I'm willing to put up with and what's my minimum behavior required for me or whatever, then again, you've got a strategy because it was a strategy that you were thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we ready for a stamp of brilliance?
I think so. Alrighty, today's stamp of brilliance is, if you don't respect your own boundaries, you can't expect anyone else to.
Amen. Please fence me in.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the podcast, please share it with a friend. Also, take a minute to rate it and leave a review on iTunes. Check out our website at uniquelybrilliant.me and sign up to have the podcast delivered directly to your inbox. Shoot any thoughts, comments, and suggestions to us at uniquelybrilliant.me. You can also reach out to us on our Facebook page, and don't forget to like us. And now we are on YouTube.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Until next time.